In this Fextralife video, we're going to be talking about the new Nightreign DLC called The Forsaken Hollows that was just announced several hours ago via a trailer from FromSoftware and Bandai Namco. We're going to break down the trailer in this video. We just did a video on this like last week talking about where's the DLC. A lot of people were speculating there wouldn't be one this year. Well, we do know that it will be coming this year. It's coming on December 4th, which is just a few weeks away at this point. So I can't wait to check out this DLC myself. But let's get into what we can glean from the trailer and from the website that is in Japanese that you can kind of get some data from. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the two biggest additions to the game, and these are the two new Nightfarers, which are the Scholar and the Undertaker. The Scholar looks to be sort of a Spellblade sort of support character, like it looks like it casts maybe healing or support magic, and it has a book in one hand and a kind of cane sword or cane/sword in the other hand. So that's just making me think it's kind of a Spellblade type character. We don't know what the abilities of it yet are, but that's kind of the playstyle. The other character looks to be another nimble type character that's wielding like a mace or a morning star. That may be an arcane focused character that specializes in status effects or something like that. So there are going to be two new Nightfarers. This is something that we mentioned in our previous video as well. One of the things we wanted was at least two new characters. We're getting that, so check that off the list of things we're getting in the new DLC. So the next thing we're going to talk a bit about is some of the things that we see in the trailer that we can deduce. The first thing is that there are DLC enemies and bosses shown in the trailer. You can see a Fire Knight shown in the early footage that the characters are fighting. This is from Shadow of the Erd Tree. And you can see the Dancing Lion boss later on in the trailer as well with the lightning and everything. So we are going to see the addition of DLC enemies and bosses to Nightreign, which is absolutely music to my ears. This is something we wanted in our previous video as well, and it just adds more variety to the game. I think it's likely you can extrapolate from this that we will also see DLC weapons and spells and skills as well. There's no reason if they're going to be adding the enemies and bosses that they wouldn't add those. And that immediately gives you more variety towards the builds and playstyles that you can put together in the regular version of the game. Like, even like, let's say for a second, there isn't a new area or anything like that. Even the addition of those things is going to randomize what you've been playing already and make it feel a little bit more fresh than it has. So that's really, really good to see. The other thing you can deduce from the trailer is that it looks like there's going to be new Night Lords as well. You can see what looks to be a boss fight where there's like many different like bird warriors. This is absolutely a boss fight of some sort. I think it makes sense that it would be a Night Lord. I don't think this would be an end-of-day boss, considering all the other end-of-day bosses are not new bosses from FromSoftware titles. They've all been in previous ones. And there's another one that looks like a large arena with like a lot of lava and fire. It's possible that this is an Elden Ring boss like Ricard, but I think it's also likely a new boss. So I think we're going to get two new Night Lords, which is something that, again, we wanted in our previous video. Two new classes, at least two new Night Lords. I think we're absolutely getting that as well. The next thing you notice immediately is, of course, the Artorias boss fight. So Artorias is being added to the game. He is one of the Dark Souls 1 DLC bosses. Absolutely iconic character in FromSoftware's franchise history. One of my personal favorites. I have like 2 or 3 Artorias shirts myself. And that's going to be absolutely awesome added to the game. And I think you can extrapolate that probably you'll see at least 1 or 2 more iconic bosses from previous, Dark Souls games or Elden Ring added into here as well. So hopefully it's not just Artorias. Hopefully we're getting some other like really iconic bosses added as well. But we don't know for sure. For right now, we simply know that Artorias is going to be added there. So the next thing let's talk about is obviously some of the new locations in the game. I don't know exactly if we're getting a new map or if we're getting new events or just new randomization. So let me talk about the things that like I sort of noticed in the trailer and kind of like what my thoughts are specifically. Because if you go on the Japanese website, it's kind of vague. It talks about a new location, but it doesn't really say a new map. So let's get into what we can tell for sure. So the first thing you can see is at like 15 seconds in the trailer, you see what looks like a new type of castle up on the hill above the lake area. So this would suggest to me that this is either a new event, like a shifting earth, or it's a variation of the map. Maybe they've added some new types of variation to the map. That could be there. So I think it's very likely we're going to see a shake up in, the maps of the game. Like, they call it different maps, but really it's just the different layouts of the same map. I think it's possible we're going to see new additions to what you can see on the landscape that further randomize your runs. And the other thing is you see like this cave area where you see like a knight and a soldier standing and fighting against the Duchess character. And that cave looks a lot like the starting cave in Elden Ring. But it's clearly a new part of the game, a new area to explore. It doesn't mean it's a whole new map or anything like that. But it's some sort of new area that you'll be able to explore within the game. I don't know if it's a shifting earth or that they've just added like more caves and systems. We'll have to see what that means exactly later on when, the DLC comes out in a few weeks. And the last and probably most major thing is you sort of see this like crystal in this dark area. We do know that there's going to be a new location below Limveld that houses this crystal and like is a dark looking area. I wouldn't call it like, Necron or the Eternal City, or it doesn't quite have the same vibe. It looks more like just like a dark, creepier wood version of Limveld, if you will. Looks a bit different than what we've seen in Elden Ring, but there's a lot of questions about this. Is this a new map? Is this a new shifting earth, like how the volcano shifting earth, you can go all the way down? Is it just similar to that? Like you're going to get it sometimes? Based on what I've seen in the trailer and what I read on the website, is that this is likely going to be a shifting earth or maybe just an addition to the map. I don't think we're going to see a full new map below Limveld that's the same size as Limveld that you're either playing Limveld or you're playing that. I don't think that's what we're seeing in this game. I don't think it was designed that way. In fact, I think based on what I'm seeing so far in this DLC that it's very likely we're not going to see a separate map from Limveld ever. I think probably realistically what's going to happen is that over time they're just going to add parts and pieces to Limveld to increase its size, change up its variety, but I don't think it's likely you're going to get Limveld, a different map, or a different map when you go out on a run. I think it's going to be some version of Limveld based on what I'm seeing so far. And that has me slightly concerned because I feel like the biggest thing that this game really needs is a shakeup in the landscape. The landscape is the one thing that if you play this game a lot, just gets really repetitive because you can actually, know exactly what you're going to face before you face it most of the time if you play hundreds of hours, which I have. And that makes things really predictable. Now, all these additions that we're getting with the DLC are obviously going to shake up that predictability. And we don't know if there's any quality of life improvements with this DLC either. Like, we don't know if there's a relic overhaul or, things like that. We haven't really heard about what sort of weapons, spells are going to be added to the game. I'm really hopeful that the DLC ones will be added based on what we've seen, but we don't know for sure. So it's possible we're going to get some other things that really shake this game up a bit. But I think the one thing that people really, really want is like a new landscape to see. I think we're going to see a bit of that in this DLC, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to satisfy everyone, myself included. Now, if they keep adding sections to Limveld and they keep adding more shifting earths and more variety of things that can spawn like different types of castles and things like that, I think that will be sufficient for most everyone, especially if they keep adding new bosses and new equipment and things like that. But there's going to be a point where they run out of old content, if you will. I say old content, but what I mean is like content from previous FromSoftware games. Obviously, they still have way more bosses they can add, way more enemies, equipment from those games. But there's going to be a point, I think, where they got to start developing new stuff, right? Like where they got to add new spells or new swords or new shields. Because I think it would just be a huge disservice to the Elden Ring Nightreign community and this game as a whole if at some point they couldn't commit the resources to develop new content for this game. Now, obviously, they're doing new areas and new bosses, and that is new content, don't get me wrong. But the enemies and spells and, equipment, at some point it would be really nice to see ones you've never seen before just thrown into there. And it's not like they have to go crazy with it, right? Like, they don't have to develop all the enemies and bosses they've already done, again, as new bosses and enemies, but just giving, 10%, 15%, 20% as new enemies and bosses, I think would go a long way. And I think I'm not alone here in that the fan base for Nightreign is a rabid community. The people who really love Nightreign, like myself, really can't get enough of the game. I really love the speed of the game. I love the hustle of it. I love the combat of it. I love that you can run and climb. I love the Elden Ring environment and the bosses and spells and all that stuff and making builds on the fly and the roguelike elements to the game. I really didn't think this was something that I was going to be into when I played it. and I quickly became obsessed with it. And frankly, probably in my own mind, the combat of this game is actually better than Elden Ring. I like the combat better, just that one aspect. I like it better, and the gameplay loop is just so much fun co-op. I am a huge co-op gameplay player. I love playing games co-op, and Elden Ring was just kind of difficult to play that way because you had to keep resummoning and things like that, so I played most of the game solo. But Nightreign is a breath of fresh air in the sense that you can just play lots and lots of co-op, and that's really, really fun. But that being said, I think a lot of Nightreign fans out there, it's not about the money for them, right? Like, they just want content. We just want more content for this game. This is such a great step in the right direction. FromSoftware delivering on what they promised by the end of the year. I had confidence that they would in our last video, and here they are delivering it by December 4th, which is, again, not that far away. And the price of this DLC, by the way, if you go to the Japanese website, it says like about 1,700 yen, which is about $11 US if you direct translate it. But I think it's likely going to be like $14.99 probably. And, that makes sense to me. It's not always a rough translation in every region. So I think this DLC is likely going to be $14.99, which is about a third of the base game price, which is fine with me. I just want them to keep cranking out the DLCs. Like, let's just get rid of the pretense that this isn't a live service game from software, and let's just start cranking out content for it that we can buy every few months and keep playing new Nightfarers and keep playing new bosses and keep playing new equipment and keep playing new locations. Let's just do it. I think the fan base would absolutely love that. Whether you call it live service or not, no one cares. They just want good content for a good game, and Nightreign is absolutely that. So let me know what you guys make of this. Are you excited for the DLC? Were you cautiously optimistic? Were you pessimistic about it coming out from the end of the year? What do you make of it? Are you going to be picking it up? Let me know in the comments below.
We must bring an end to it ourselves. Curse this Dreadlord.
The aftermath of the long night. I suppose it must be fate at work again.